Late afternoon. Cold wind swirled around a gas station off I-90 near Bozeman. The hiss of the pump blended with the deep rumble of Harley engines from the Road Guardian's MC. Black saddles, shining chrome lined up like shields. Jack Dalton, their leader, stood beside pump number 4 when an old silver sedan pulled in. The woman behind the wheel looked to be in her 30s, pale cheeks, eyes darting between the window and rear-view mirror. In the back seat, a little boy clutched a worn teddy bear. She rolled down the window. "Please," she whispered, placing a folded piece of paper into Jack's hand. The sedan crept forward as she murmured, "Thank you." Jack unfolded the note. The rushed handwriting read, "Please help me. My ex-husband is following us. He's dangerous. I'm with my son. Don't call the police. He'll find us. Just help us get away from here." The store door swung open. A man stepped out, clenched jaw, eyes sweeping the lot like a predator. Jack folded the note and slipped it into his leather jacket. Across the pumps, Cole and Mason caught the signal. Jack gave a single nod. Engines flared to life, rumbling like thunder. This story began with a small piece of paper and the choice of men who wore shields on their backs to stand for what's right. Her name was Rachel Moore. The boy was Ethan, 6.5. The silver sedan had been limping for weeks, its check engine light burning red. Montana stretched endlessly, only fear kept up. Rachel used to work night shifts at a grocery store outside Billings. Derek, handsome, charming, came and went like an addiction. When Ethan was born, jealousy and liquor turned apologies into a tightening noose. After the night he smashed a picture frame in front of their son, she left and filed for a restraining order. But the paper couldn't stop the wheels of his black SUV. That morning, Rachel had seen the SUV in her mirror. She changed her route, turned onto the interstate, and stopped at the gas station. Inside, Derek pretended to pick coffee while his eyes stayed fixed on the door. Calling 911 had once made things worse. He retaliated by sleeping in his car outside her house for nights. When Rachel saw the row of Harleys and leather jackets, she didn't think about stereotypes. She saw a wall, one that could stand between her and violence. She wrote, "Don't call the police. Just help us get away." She didn't know the Road Guardians were known for charity rides for veterans and shelters for women. She only saw Jack's calm eyes, steady, like an anchor in the wind. And at that moment, something old in Jack stirred, a memory of a stranger once opening a garage door and saying, "You're safe here." In that instant, Jack understood. That note wasn't just a plea. It was 2 lives in his hands. Once, Rachel had counted every dollar in a blue notebook. Milk for Ethan, power bills, gas money. Each page was a plan to survive. She knew Derek's knock by heart. 3 hard pounds, 1 pause. She knew the cheap cologne he used to mask the smell of whiskey. When she wrote, "Don't call the police," she remembered the one time she'd prayed they'd come faster. And they came too late. And when Jack saw the word son, he saw himself at 17, wandering a frozen highway, taken in by an old man who pushed a chair toward him and handed him a steaming mug of coffee. Sometimes kindness begins with something that small. The Road Guardians moved into formation. Cole adjusted his earpiece. Mason checked the radio. Rocco and June blocked the exits. Jack signaled, leading the pack out of the gas station as quietly as a great beast. Derek hesitated for a second, then followed. A few miles down, Rachel's sedan overheated. She pulled over, popped the hood. Steam hissed out. The bikers formed a wall between her and the road. Cole checked. "Coolant leak, fans weak." Jack spoke quietly. You and your boy stand behind us. No one touches you. Rachel looked at the line of leather backs. Their silence spoke a language with only one meaning: protection. Static crackled through the radio. Black SUV approaching. Jack gave the signal. Rocco took Ethan's hand and placed him between two bikes. I'm Rocco. Nobody gets past us, okay? Ethan hugged his bear and nodded. The engine's steady thrum sounded like a grown man's heartbeat, stronger than fear. The SUV slid to a stop, brakes screeching. Derek jumped out, shouting, "Rachel, get in the car!" Burnt rubber mixed with hot steam. Jack stepped forward. Stop. There's a child here, he said, voice low but firm. This ain't your business, Derek sneered. Mason folded his arms. Cole rolled his wheel, crunching gravel. June raised her phone, screen light reflecting off her cold cheek. You had your chance to be a man, Jack said. Don't make us be the wall. Derek took half a step, then froze. The boots on the asphalt drew a silent line. He trembled, from rage and fear. He cursed, turned back, slammed the door, and sped away. The SUV vanished into the horizon. The silence afterward felt like the air after a storm. Rachel collapsed to her knees. Jack caught her. It's over. We'll get you somewhere safe. Cole called a tow truck. Mason rigged a fix so she and Ethan could sit warm inside. Jack phoned Linda from the shelter. Got a mom and kid for tonight. Send them over, Linda replied. Jack also called Pete, a mechanic friend in Bozeman. When the tow truck arrived, the bikers took the lead. The sedan followed, and Cole closed the rear. Pine trees darkened along the road as old snow glittered like sugar at the shoulder. Rocco rode beside the sedan, giving Ethan a thumbs up. The boy smiled and tapped the window in return. On the radio came short, steady bursts, as precise as a breathing. Distance? 25 seconds, widening. Crosswind right, hold formation 3. The Gallatin Valley wind carried the smell of thawing ice and pine resin. Tires crunched over grit scattered for traction. Rachel gripped the door handle, holding back tears. In the rear view, helmets moved in sync, calm, deliberate. Every motion had a reason. Ethan rested his head on the seat back, whispering to his bear, Captain, don't be scared. We've got them. When Derek had stepped out earlier, his coat flapped in the wind. He'd seen Jack's eyes, calm as a frozen lake, the kind of calm that makes the man throwing stones see himself. He'd forced a smirk, but his palms had been slick with sweat. Standing before those riders felt like standing at the gate of a guarded fortress. Every man at his post, no one needing to shout. A passing pickup honked, curious. Jack didn't look away from Derek. He only gestured for Cole to maintain lane distance. No fists, no threats, just a boundary built of presence. Bozeman's lights flickered ahead. The road guardians turned into a small motel near Main Street, parking their bikes in a horseshoe to block the lot's corner. Jack paid for 2 nights in advance. Rachel led Ethan into the warm room. Mason brought soup, milk, and bread. Eat. We'll stay outside, Jack said, like someone laying a blanket over the cold. Rocco texted, Black SUV just looped back. They shut the lights, lowered their helmets. Mason watched from a shadowed corner, engines idling, ready. The air thickened like before a storm. The SUV stopped at the alley's mouth, headlights off. Derek gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. He opened the door. Jack was already there. Go home, Derek. Tonight no one leaves here unless she wants to. Mason added evenly. There are cameras here. 12 witnesses. The kid's asleep. Derek growled, glancing at the circle of bikes like a fortress wall. In their eyes, he saw something he rarely met, not anger, Only resolve. He slammed the door and drove off. Jack knocked on the motel door. Rachel whispered, "Is he?" "He's gone," Jack said, leaving a business card on the table. The Road Guardian's logo and a number. "Tomorrow we'll take you to Haven House. Pete's working on your car." Dawn peeled night away, a pink streak stretching across the Bridger Range. Ethan came to the door holding his teddy bear. "Can you keep him safe for me?" he asked. He placed the bear in Jack's calloused hand. Jack paused, bowed his head, solemn like receiving a flag. "I'll keep him safe." Cole teased, "Captain's got his own escort now." Ethan laughed, his first laugh since yesterday. The group set off. In front of a brick building marked Haven House, Linda waited with a kind, non-judging smile. "Welcome. Here, no one touches you until you're ready to speak," she said. Rachel cried, not from fear, but because she was finally allowed to let go. Inside room 12, heavy curtains blocked the wind, and the heater crackled softly. Rachel looked in the mirror, swollen eyes, hair hastily tied up. She unwrapped plastic spoons, blew on Ethan's soup. Outside, the shadows of helmets passed the window like silent sentinels. When Derek left, Jack lingered under the porch for a minute, hands in his jacket pockets, breath misting. He wasn't fearless. He'd just learned to stand inside fear. Years ago, he'd learned it from that man in the garage, the one who taught him that courage sometimes means staying to guard the door until morning comes. 2 days at Haven House. Rachel met with counselors to extend her restraining order, got connected to a domestic violence network in Gallatin County. Linda called a volunteer lawyer. A social worker arranged a temporary school for Ethan if needed. Phone calls and checklists wove a net strong enough to catch someone falling. At Pete's garage, the silver sedan sat under fluorescent light. "Radiator fan's dead, hose cracked," Pete said. "I'll replace 'em. No charge. Parts are on me." He patted Jack's shoulder. "Someone once pulled me out of a snowbank. My turn now." That afternoon, the Road Guardians brought groceries, fuel cards, and a warm jacket for Ethan. The boy stood at the window, drawing with crayons, a line of motorcycles and a big shield. "This one's you," he said, pointing to a figure in a big helmet. Cole chuckled, swallowing a lump. "Handsome guy." "He should be bigger," Ethan corrected. Jack asked Rachel, "Where to next?" "Spokane. My sister's there," she said. "When the car's ready, we'll ride with you." Jack nodded. On the third day, the sedan purred again. Pete handed over the keys. "Go easy on the gas." Rachel hugged Linda tightly. Ethan high-fived Jack. "His name's Captain," he said. "Keep him till we have a new home." Jack placed Captain in his inner pocket, close to his heart. They left Bozeman under an amber sky. Along I-90, the convoy gleamed like an arrow of light. At every stop, the Road Guardians parked in a ring with mother and child at the center, not for show, just so safety had a shape. At the Spokane exit, Jack rode alongside Rachel's window, gesturing. "All good?" She nodded. They split ways. No fireworks, no music, just a mother driving into the sunset, and a boy turning to wave goodbye to the shields behind him. They stopped once at a rest area near Deer Lodge. Cole bought cookies and a milk carton. Mason topped off the gas and checked the tires. Overhead, geese flew in a crooked V, their cries echoing across the valley. Ethan asked to stick a lightning bolt sticker on Cole's tank. Cole laughed. "Deal. When you reach Spokane, peel it off and put it on your fridge." Crossing Lookout Pass, the evening sun poured honey over the mountains, snow glinting between the rocks. Rachel looked out the window. For the first time in months, the road ahead looked long, but not frightening. In her hand, she held a small paper with her sister's address. Another piece of paper, but this time her hand didn't tremble. Not everyone in leather is dangerous. Not everyone who smiles is safe. The Road Guardians' strength wasn't in their engines, but in how they used their bodies as walls for the vulnerable. Rachel learned that asking for help isn't a weakness. It's the bravest act of a mother. Ethan learned what safety looks like. Grown-ups standing in a circle saying, "No one gets through." Kindness is often quiet. A nod, a late-night call, a fuel card on a counter, a folded note, or a jacket draped over cold shoulders. When a child places a worn teddy bear in your hands, you understand. Trust can begin with a cheap toy and grow into something that carries us through winter. Someday, you'll be the one extending your hand, like Jack Dalton did, like Pete, like Linda, a chain of hands passing warmth through the cold. Maybe kindness doesn't change the whole world in a day, but it changes someone's world in the one moment that matters. Sometimes it all begins with stopping your car, opening the door, and saying, "You're safe here. If this story touched you, comment below." I still believe in kindness. Share it, so another Rachel out there knows there's always a door waiting. Subscribe to hear more stories of courage, compassion, and silent road guardians. What story should we tell next? Write about a time you were helped, or when you protected someone else. Who knows? Your small note might become someone's shield exactly when they need it most. And tell us where you're watching from, so the network of quiet shields grows thicker across every road.